All right. I do believe we are live on Facebook. All right, we have success. Okay, welcome, Fred, Jason. Thanks for joining me today on this live webinar and, live on Facebook. People are on live on the webinar. And I also want to thank our listeners for joining us today. Yay. All right, so just so everyone knows, I will ask Fred and Jason some questions, and then I'm going to go to the people who are on the live webinar and answer their questions first. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat box or the Q&A section. And then after I'm finished answering all of those questions, I'm going to go onto the Facebook Live and I'll go through and answer those questions or comments. If I don't get to your question and comment, or we don't, then just don't be too upset. We will answer because we will be checking back on the Facebook Live to go ahead and answer any questions or comments that you have. All right, so Jason, Fred. All right, you both, Fred, you grew up here in California. You live here in California and you've been fighting this fight on a legislative level. And Jason, you and Ted Gibson own a salon here in LA, not that far from me. And I would love to hear how this pandemic has affected you both personally. And we can start with Fred.
How it has impacted me personally? Well, I'm not the one running a salon. I'm not a behind the chair professional. I'm the fork-tongued attorney and lobbyist. My next life, I'll sell used cars just to round out my karma. But the Professional Beauty Federation of California was formed back in 1999, and I was brought on board the next year, so in 2000. So for 20 years, I've proudly represented this industry. I think I know the industry in and out, especially the laws and the regulations and the politicos and the regulators. I know where a lot of bodies are buried because I've buried a few. But I don't pretend to be an expert because I'm not a behind the chair professional. That's you guys. I only try to give you voice. But the goal of the PBFC is to give us a clear voice in Sacramento so that Sacramento does things more for us rather than to us. And for 20 years, we've had a lot of success in shifting that calculus from the 2 to the 4. And then COVID struck and all bets were off. Not only did we get run roughshod, but even the state legislature and the judicial branch of our government have just completely capitulated to one man who's running the 6th largest economy in the world from an office of just about a dozen political handlers and a couple of senior folks at the Department of Public Health. So that kind of changed my 20 years of tenure representing this industry in a big way, which we'll be talking about later today. So I just want to say this. It really hit me last week, the gravity of the situation that we find ourselves as an association representing over 621,000 individuals.
Your Wi-Fi is slowing, so you're good now.
Are we good now? Or am I still C3PO?
No, you still sound like C3PO.
Then let me just kick it over to Jason.
Okay, so you must be supposed to stop talking now. So
That's your secret code, Kim?
yeah, that's a secret code. I just like turn up this weird sound and say, okay, shut up, Fred. All right, Jason, how
Yes.
has this crazy pandemic affected you?
Well, my husband, Ted Gibson, and I opened the world's first smart salon on La Brea in Los Angeles just 11 months before we were shut down. So we were sort of just getting into a groove with kind of really defining what this business was going to be all about. And ironically, through setting up the first smart salon, we'd already set up, we don't have assistants, we don't have a front desk, we don't carry inventory. All of the product that's purchased is through apps. So the front entrance is secure, the back entrance is secure. We were by appointment only. The stations were built in these beautiful clouds that are 13 feet high, 8.5 feet wide, and 9 feet long. So what we were thinking of as luxury is also by coincidence socially distanced. So, you know, as we were redefining all of this and getting into our groove is when we got shut down in March. And, you know, we're the kind of guys that when we go to Vegas, well, we don't go to Vegas, but if we were to go to Vegas, we're not the guys that would sit at the nickel slots and have the free drinks. Because, you know, at the nickel slots, you're never really going to win big. You're never going to lose big, but you're never going to win big. And we're the kind of guys that end up at the high roller table and throw it all on red and hope for a big win. And that's what we did when we left New York and we moved to California. You know, we bet the farm on this small business and on our new product line. And so when it was shut down, we literally had $2,800 in our account. So we were really panicking about what are we going to do? You know, our whole life was set up around traveling to New York to see clients, Hollywood, you know, Ted's a celebrity hairdresser. So going to red carpet events, movie premieres, press junkets, all that sort of stuff. And then seeing clients in the salon, and overnight, everything stopped. So we were personally put into a situation of real insecurity. And as business owners, you know, we also had to worry about our staff. You know, we're a small operation compared to our salons in New York and Fort Lauderdale and Washington, D.C. that all had, you know, 20 chairs. This is just 5 chairs, and we just have two guys that work with us. But still, you know, we're responsible for providing a safe, profitable place for them to earn a living. And that was stopped too. So it was stressful personally and professionally.
Yeah, I'm really appreciative of you being so transparent, Jason. I think it's really important for people to understand that we're all, you know, in this, you know, on this ship trying to, you know, row this boat all together. So it was just like that, like, boom, we were all shut down. And then we were all just back up and rolling again. And I don't know if, at least for myself, we were, you know, rolling along, and then boom, we were shut down again like that on the second one. So I really, really appreciate your transparency on that. All right, Fred. So who roped you in to advocating for the salon industry? Because you seem like you haven't had anything to do with the salon industry up until, you know, say 20 years ago. But how did you get roped into this?
Yeah, first of all, how's the sound check? Am I still C3PO?
Yeah, no, I'll turn you down. I'll turn it up when you are.
Okay, just give me the hook. So I started working as a lowly intern in our California State Legislature in 1992, worked my way up to Chief of Staff Capital Director for a legislator. And during that time, I was going to law school at night. I was married, had a child and a mortgage. It usually takes people 3 years to get through law school. It took me 4.5, all at night and on weekends. And I was admitted to the bar in 1998 and the legislator that I was proudly representing was termed out in 2000. So the plan was I was going to leave politics altogether, hang out my shingle, and become a sole proprietor law firm. But I had worked with some folks in this industry in my capacity as a legislative staff, and they asked me to kind of help them get this organization off the ground. And again, my intent was, okay, I'll help them and a couple of other folks for a couple of years, but I want out of politics. But like the Al Pacino character in Godfather, every time I tried to leave the family business, they pulled me back in. And so I've basically been a public policy advocate ever since 2000, under my own shingle, law offices of Fred Jones. But the beauty industry really became my primary client and my passion. And I was brought on board by the founders of the organization. Some of them were members of the ICSA, the International Chain Salon Association. Ted Nelson, who serves as our president, actually formed the second largest chain conglomerate in the world, back then called Opal Concepts. They had Fantastic Sam's, Jose Aber, Carlton, a bunch of salons, second only to Regis, before his retirement. And although Ted never retires, he's a serial entrepreneur. But Ted and a school owner by the name of Bob Gross and Alex Irving and Sharon Esch, PR experts in the industry, and some others got together and said, you know, we're spending all this time and effort at the national and even international level when the game is really set. The rules are set and enforced at the state level and at the municipal, city and county level. Why are we spending all this time, resources, and bandwidth in Congress? And back then, the big issue was a tip tax. Does that sound familiar? It's still being pursued today, 20 years later. And so they went to the principals of ICSA, now ISBN, and said, hey, how about we start organizing at the state level in all 50 states? Let's have stakeholders across the various industry sectors that can have relationships of trust with their state representatives and regulators and state board, and be real, be at the local level where things happen. And they said, great, do it. Where are you guys located now? Oh, you're in the most populous, one of the most influential states of California. Start there. So that was kind of the beginning. And the mission was simple. We wanted to raise the professionalism of our industry in California. And we fully expected this to be replicated in the other 49 states. And the means to that goal was to bring all of the stakeholders, the various sectors of the industry, around one table so that we could hash out what are the issues of transcendent importance to everybody. We weren't going to pick winners and losers. We weren't going to divide and conquer. We weren't going to have any personal agendas. Our industry was buffeted with that for decades before we started this organization. It was alphabet soup groups in a circular firing squad. So instead of aiming their guns at the politicians and regulators in Sacramento, they were aiming them at each other. And so the PBFC's goal was to speak with a clear, united voice on issues of transcendent importance to everybody: skin, hair, nails, beauty college students, beauty colleges, community college programs, everybody. Booth rental, employee-based. We weren't going to pick favorites. Mm-hmm. We did a really good job, and we've got a proud record of 20 years of accomplishments. Where we didn't do a good job is marketing ourselves. So there's an opportunity here that we've never had to finally put our name, our record, our mission on the collective map of this huge industry that's so difficult to organize. So that's how I got roped into this.
Wow. and then you just fell in love with us all, because we're just a fun group to hang out with, aren't we, Jason?
For sure.
So Jason, last week you and Fred did was it a radio interview that you guys did?
Yes.
Yeah. It was a radio interview last Friday, I believe. And I'm wondering if you had ever met Fred, or if you've ever heard of the Pro Beauty Federation of California. Like, did you know about this?
No. I actually, when I got the invitation to do the interview, I did a little Googling on Mr. Fred and found a little bit of information. And then I reached out to a mutual friend of ours, Linnell Lynch, who runs Beauty Changes Lives. And she gave Fred a rave review and said, yes, Jason, I think you should absolutely do the interview. And after the interview was over, I asked for Linnell to do an email introduction because I was inspired by the things that Fred was saying, and I wanted to talk a little bit more. So he immediately responded faster than I did. I thought I was responding quickly. And we jumped on the phone and talked for probably 45 minutes. And I was more inspired after that short conversation to be involved in a state level in a way that I haven't been before. So to Fred's point, he's right. They haven't done a great job at marketing, and they haven't done a great job at making politics feel sexy. But that aside, taking a look at their record and the things that they've done, you know, I'm inspired by the action that they're taking. And it was, like I said, it was a really exciting call. So I was really happy. I actually texted the producer that made the introduction and thanked him this morning for making the introduction, because now here we are and we're all having this conversation with a common goal of getting our businesses open.
And I think that is the goal that I think I think everybody on this call, whether they're on this webinar, whether they're on the webinar, actually, we've got 77 people in on the webinar. We've got another 27 people on right now on Facebook Live. And I think that is what we all want. And that is all of our goal, no matter which side you're on. So, and you know, there's been just this huge mystery because you guys have done a terrible job at marketing yourself. There's this mystery, right, about who the Pro Beauty Federation really is, right? And you know, so what do you guys think that we need to do? Or should I say, how do you think the continued lack of unity that we have here affects the overall progress, not just in our current situation, you know, because everybody's kind of arguing like, this is right, this is right, this is right. How do you think that really affects our overall goal to our current situation, which is to get back open, but then also in the future? And I'm going to start with Jason.
It's a great question. You know, one of the things that Ted and I have been talking about nonstop is how impressed we were with the food and beverage industry when all of our businesses got shut down. Like, the food and beverage industry has done an amazing job through advertising campaigns, through celebrity endorsers, whether they're celebrity chefs or well-known household names, to tell people to go out and buy gift cards, to do curbside pickup, to do all of the things that they could do to support these small businesses. Meanwhile, our industry, from the perception of sitting in the living room watching the television, had almost zero representation. We did not have a unified voice. The only things that I saw on the news were, we're not in a hurry to open up salons because this whole thing started in a nail salon. Oh, those two dumb hairdressers that went to work sick and probably infected everyone. You know, things like that, that just reinforced the dumb hairdresser versus the smart business people that we are. And that was really disappointing. But at the same time, it really lit a fire under both Ted and I to find ways that we could be more involved in our city, in our county, in our state, and in our country, to make sure that we make it known that we are a professional industry, that we are licensed, that we are dedicated to safety and sanitation, and that just a very small portion of the business that we do is actually cutting hair. So while it's been a really challenging time for a lot of reasons, the flip side of that coin is Ted and I have both been so incredibly inspired to do new things. We've always had the platform of elevating our industry, but we've sort of been, in hindsight, preaching to the choir because we've been speaking to other hairdressers. And as hairdressers, we may not know our value, we may not know our worth, we may not know how to raise our prices, but we know that we're professionals. We know that we have that license. And so now for me, it's time to shift gears and start talking to the other parts of our community, the politicians, the leaders, the media, to let them know that we are in fact a group of really inspired entrepreneurs who contribute immensely to our economy.
Oh, that's so true. And that's one of the things that really has, that's just drives me crazy. I have that thing, where, what do you do for a living? And I'm just a hairdresser. And really, I've spent 30 years in this industry, and I'm not just a hairdresser. I'm actually probably more intelligent than most. And so are you. You and Ted, like, I mean, wow, like,
thank you.
Craziness what you guys created over there in LA. It's totally crazy. So Fred, how do you think this kind of lack of unity within our industry, how do you think it affects the outcome of us really reopening?
So I see kind of two facets of the lack of unity. One is the snipers and the gadflies and the whiners who like to post on social media. And again, those are the people that are in the circular firing squad. We don't have time for them. And fortunately, they are a very, very small group within our huge industry. The real problem is that most of our hairdressers, our barbers, our skincare professionals, they've got blinders on. Their world is limited to their booth, to their salon, to their book of clients. To them, that's it. They don't see the world in terms of business beyond that. And, ordinarily that's a good thing. When we live in a free society, you shouldn't have to worry about Big Brother knocking on your door. But things have changed. And when we have a governor who is taking into his hands all three branches of our government, executive, legislative, and judicial, ignoring his own appointed folks that have subject matter expert over our industry, i.e. the State Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, and micromanaging with a select few of politicos and a couple of quote unquote medical experts, our industry and all the other industries that make up the vibrant, diverse economy of California, it's ludicrous. And I think this was a wake-up call and kind of the removal of these blinders, because it doesn't matter how good of a hairdresser you are, how great your book of clients are, how willing they are to crawl over broken glass to get to you every 6 weeks for a color and a cut. The governor, your state government, can shut you down in an instant. So that has been the moment of opportunity and clarity that all of us need to have. We now need those blinders to come off, and for this huge industry to be united, to rally behind a united banner, to defend the professionalism of our careers, the essentialism of our businesses, and the safety of our salons. And I know hopefully we'll get to about the outside services routine. Oh, my voice.
I'm cutting you off now again.
No problem.
You were on such like a good roll about unity, and I was like, yes, go. And then you just started like for all of you who don't know, Fred's like up in the sticks, so he doesn't have the greatest reception here. So anyway, so you know, when I've known about the PBFC for a few years, mostly because I'm friends with Alex and Alex and Sharon, Alex Irving and Sharon Ashton. They've done some work for me in my salon years ago and just love them. And so I knew about the PBFC, and you and I had tag teamed on a couple things on AB 1513 and 490 and AB5 and all that stuff. And but I had never really met you. So recently I was able to kind of meet you. And, I guess the thing that occurred to me when I met you, and I found out really what the PBFC really, really was like, and I had an opportunity to meet Ted Nelson, and what I thought of is like the Wizard of Oz, and here we're off to see the wizard, and everybody sees you like as this big, like bad lawyer, and the person, I had to just crack up, because here's this person doing all the marketing, all the posting, all the, fighting and legislation, all the stuff, right? So you're just like the Wizard of Oz. So I'm kind of like Toto, and I'm going to kind of pull the curtain open to let people see that this is just really a one-man show. So I want to ask you, so is the PBFC this giant organization with this big, huge law firm that's making all kinds of money? And what is okay, is it a volunteer organization? The people that are involved, we've talked about a few, the Federicos and the, Sharon and Alex and Ted and a few other people. Is this are they making money from this? Who's profiting off this? Or is this like a nonprofit organization?
If they're making money, they would be the first to be surprised. No, in fact, for 20 years, the folks that have been involved in this organization hasn't made a dime. And by the way, just to clarify, all the money that we've raised for our GoFundMe page for our legal defense fund, every dime has gone to 4 law firms that we retained to sue the governor. Not a dime has come to my law firm or to the PBFC. In fact, I just sent off another check to our lead counsel this morning. This is a 501c6 nonprofit trade association. We are led by a volunteer board that's not paid. We have done 19 years in a row a Welcome to Our World event, where we set up at great expense a tent on the state capitol steps, a 30-foot by 70-foot tent, where we give complimentary services, beauty services, to legislators and their staff, and to gubernatorial officials, and even the state board. In fact, the state board partnered with us last year so that they could be in the tent to answer questions of policymakers. Although I will say the last couple years we moved it indoors because of heat, because of wind. Sound familiar? But they've retained me. So I'm the only one that gets paid within the PBFC. It's not a big group. And my job is to give us a presence in our state capitol, at the state board, with BPPE, Department of Consumer Affairs, other state agencies. I will say, I'm proud to say, I have missed one state board meeting in 20 years. I attend all of the state board meetings. I attend all the meetings at the state legislature of anything of relevance, and not just hearings, but conversations behind the scenes where decisions really are made. And I bring the expertise of my organization and of these stakeholders to bear. Again, as I admitted earlier, I'm not the expert in this industry. You all are. Whenever I go and make visits with members of my organization in the state capitol, the last thing I'll tell them before we walk in to talk to a state assembly member or senator is just remember, the only expert in the room is not the legislator or their staff or this fork-tongued attorney lobbyist. The only expert in the room is you. So have confidence. You're the licensed professional. So did that answer your question, Kim?
Yep, that answered my question. I appreciate that. I think that we all appreciate that you respect us, actually. So Jason, you know, we've had kind of a few talks back and forth over the weekend about, you know, national organization versus state by state organization, you know, and there's, you know, this one over here is better, this one over here is better. So what are your thoughts about a national organization that represents the industry as a whole versus state by state organizations that only represent service providers?
Well, I sort of look at it as a cruise ship versus speedboat. You know, they both are important. They both have a very solid role in the industry. I think that the national organizations have a broader sort of approach where a statewide organization can be really targeted and focused. I think that we need to have both. I think that there's a really nice balance in having both. I think that there's a nice representation in having both. This is really my first several days being involved in a state organization. And like I said earlier, it's been nothing but inspiring. So I'm happy to be a part of both.
Yeah, I agree. I find it very inspiring. All right, so now we're going to get to something that has been very, very controversial, Fred, and that is the lawsuit that the PBFC filed against Governor Newsom and California's BBC. So I know that's a really huge controversy, and I don't really want to, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of questions about the lawsuit, but what I just really want to know is what happened in that lawsuit. Did the lawsuit end? Is it still going on? What's going on?
Well, just briefly, let me give you the justification for why we decided to become so confrontational. And by the way, appealing to our third branch of government is fair game. That's why we have a third branch of government. You know, recalling a governor, yes, technically that's fair game too, but we are not endorsing a recall of Governor Newsom. We're trying to stay in the ring of appropriate political confrontation. When the governor came out on April 28th and announced, and this was after almost 2 months of a lockdown, that he was going to put us in phase 3, and then vowed that that would be additional months, not weeks, we fired off a letter that evening to his cabinet secretary. And by the next morning, I had an hour-and-a-half meeting with her and with the state board executive officer. And we tried our best, using our considerable influence and connections in Sacramento, to convince them against that. And we had lots of reasons. The practical reason was we've spent 20 years building up the professionalism of this industry, which the bedrock is our state license and state regulatory oversight. We risked massive defiance if this continued and was prolonged. So we offered a practical concern. I also discussed some of the legal concerns that we had. Long story short, Kim, by that Friday, the state board was instructed by the governor's office to put out a notice to all 621,000 licensed professionals and all 53,000 licensed establishments that said, you better stay shut or else. And so we realized at that point that our political and diplomatic channels had all been exhausted. And about 12 days later is when we filed in Los Angeles County Federal District Court a preliminary injunction to force the governor and the Department of Consumer Affairs, the agency cabinet secretary, and our state board to reopen our industry. I will say a couple of things. One, we had lots of sworn declarations and legal filings swapping back and forth the next couple of weeks. The Attorney General's office represented the executive agency. In 250 pages of the defendant's responses, not once did they reference that nail salon that was the site of supposedly the first community contagion. Kind of interesting, since that would have been their legal get out of jail free card, their ultimate trump card, if you will. He has since, by the way, backed off on being able to provide any verifiable evidence. And the whole reason why the governor even mentioned that is because we also coupled our lawsuit with a hashtag Open Salons Now campaign. I was talking to dozens of reporters every day. Those same reporters were at the press conferences of the governor, and they started asking him questions about our threatened lawsuit, even before we filed it. And we were actually occupying free rent in Gavin Newsom's head for a couple of weeks. And that's when he lashed out about the nail salon. Long story short, and I'm making it too long, the day our final briefs were due, our final arguments, just happened to be the day Governor Newsom allowed hair salons to reopen in barbershops. And the Attorney General's attorneys made reference to that fact in their closing argument, filed 3 hours after the governor's press conference, saying, "Judge, this is a moot point now. The governor has reopened the salon industry." We believe our lawsuit and our media campaign were the reason why we were able to get our salons reopened. That's the background on the lawsuit. On the preliminary injunction, about 2 weeks before our final arguments, the United States Supreme Court made a decision that completely undermined our legal standing. There was a case dealing with Nevada religious congregants who were opposing the lockdown on their Sunday services. Their case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And in a split 5-4 decision written by the Chief Justice John Roberts, they basically said, in times of states of emergency, governors have broad police powers, including the ability to even ignore First Amendment litigants, such as freedom of religion, religious congregations. We knew right then and there that our lawsuit was not going to hold legal muster, but we litigated it in the court of public opinion. And on that score, we think we won.
All right. Thank you. Because I just wanted to clear that up, because a lot of people think it's still going on and it's costing like all this money. Jason, I want to ask you, because there's so many people that think this lawsuit is too drastic of a measure to take, or maybe the wrong action to take, and we should have been maybe a little bit more passive and instead of aggressive. What's your personal opinion? Do you think the lawsuit against Governor Newsom and California's BBC, do you think it was too aggressive?
No. I grew up a 4-H'er, a Boy Scout, in the church choir. I'm all about building relationships and community and right action happening through those relationships. And at the same time, there comes a moment when I need to ruffle some feathers in order to be heard and to be noticed. And I think that this was the quintessential moment in the state of California where we needed an organization to ruffle some feathers and get the focus put back on our businesses. So no, I don't think it was too aggressive. I think that the timing was right. I've never filed a lawsuit against anybody, but I'm a firm believer that when the time is right, you need to strike with that hot iron.
Sometimes that's what we have to do, don't we? Thank you. All right. So, Fred, did the PBFC advocate for outdoor operations after the California was shut down for the second time? And I really want to just say, if you could keep it as brief as possible so that we could get on to some of these other questions of the viewers. Did they advocate, and if so, what was the strategy behind that?
Yeah, and you just told me to be brief. My name's Fred Jones. Have we met? I'll say this. This has really become a political battle more than it is about science and data at this point. With the governor allowing us to open salons outside, he's essentially acknowledging that we can do our services safely. The CDC just last week also acknowledged we can do our services safely. Jason mentioned those two stylists back in Missouri that got all the national headlines because they exposed 139 of their customers to their positive COVID. How many of us read the fact that not a single person came down with it? The media never followed up. So it's our job to follow up and explain to them, because they implemented the same safety protocols that all of our 53,000 salons here in California have implemented. Nobody got the dreaded COVID. We have science now on our side. We're building data, anecdotal as it is, over that 5-week period that we helped reopen our salons. No COVID cases so far traced to any salon. So we're developing the data. We now have the science. But we started losing the attention of the media. And if you do that, you know the old saying, bad press is better than no press. We were the proverbial tree that was falling in the forest, but nobody was around to hear it. So it really didn't make a sound. When the governor fluffed up about 2 weeks ago in resuming these lockdowns and said, oh, by the way, nothing's stopping you from going outside, you industries that I'm shutting down now. And he mentioned dining out, etc. Then we all heard 3.5 hours later, the state board had to come out and say, well, wait a minute, Governor. There's a little thing called the Business and Professions Code, and we have a definition of an establishment, and those are the only places you can do your services. It does not include outside services. So we right there then saw publicly that the governor's not even taken the counsel of our State Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. That's important to note. It's also, by the way, important to note, and I've seen some comments, the state board's job is not to advocate for us. They're there to regulate us and to protect our clients. Our job, the PBFC's job, that's the job to advocate for you, and all of us need to be part of the PBFC. In other words, we need to advocate for each other. But we decided to take advantage of the governor's fluff up over this whole outside services thing. So I went on with press conferences with legislators. We had letters going to the governor. Even the Speaker of the Assembly interceded on behalf, saying, hey, at least give the beauty industry the same respect you were willing to give the restaurant industry. But then immediately upon a week later, when he announced he was going to ignore the law and allow us to reopen outside, and then he pointed to the COVID page and said, there's the protocols. Nowhere in that COVID protocol did it mention shampooing or chemical coloring. It wasn't mentioned. It wasn't negated. That didn't come for another 3 hours later when the Department of Consumer Affairs put out another clarifying memo. And then the county health departments piled on top of that. The whole outside services thing, in my opinion, was a great opportunity to expose the farce of this entire shutdown. It's not about science. It's not about data. It's not about safety. It's politics. It's a governor micromanaging things with a very select few of people that have no clue what our industry is about.
Your Wi-Fi is going weird again.
No worries.
Okay, so it was strategic.
It was. The trap was set. The trap was sprung. Now we're able to point to Jason's salon and all the others. Look at the time, effort, money that they put into their salons.
Can't even really hear you. So, but I think we got the gist. Thanks, Fred. Jason, are you and Ted open for outdoor operations? I'm curious.
We are not. The concept of us doing hair out on the street, you know, I've seen some people posting like these amazing pictures from their outdoor terraces with misters and doing the best that they can in a really in a difficult time. For us, it's just not a reality. You know, we have a couple of parking spots in the back of our building that are right next to a giant dumpster and a giant recycling bin and a homeless guy that does his laundry next to those. And then on the La Brea side of the street, it's a very busy street. It would basically be a sort of a circus show that would not be conducive at all to running a business. Not even to mention the fact that the majority of our business comes from hair color, which is impossible to do outside and not part of the regulations. You know, we got, what was it, Fred, like 25 pages or something of rules of how to run extension cords and how we can put up a covering or a tent that only has one wall and that no one can use the bathrooms and you can't wash your hair, you can't, like all of these things that make it virtually impossible. Like if it was just about a haircut, maybe, but what we're doing is about running a beautiful business and taking really good care of people. So like I said earlier, the haircut is the smallest part about what most of us are doing in our businesses. We're community. We're like the social hub. We're providing respite. We're, you know, building confidence. We're doing all of these things that take the special place that we've built, not a chair next to a dumpster.
And it's important that that image that Jason just painted needs to actually be splashed across our TV cameras. That's the action item I want everyone listening to this to really think about. I'm in daily contact with 500,000 of our stylists who are contacting their local media outlets and saying, please come to my salon. Some of them have a tent and they can say, look how difficult it is to do these services in a tent. Come over to my much more controlled and safe salon environment. Look at the protocols that we invested money into, money that we couldn't afford to keep our clients safe. Why? Who in their right mind would think working out in the heat, working out in the wind, working out with pollen and air contaminants and passerbys and restaurant dining areas right next to us is more sanitized than working in our salons? That's the image Governor Newsom needs to see in his nightly news feed. Partner with us. We will help do interviews with your local media. We will express this to them. That's why we had to do this outside services routine. That's how we keep the media's attention on our industry, so that we're not the proverbial tree that falls in the forest where nobody's around to hear us.
I agree. You gotta be loud sometimes. Okay, so now I'm gonna get to, we don't have a ton of time left. Just a few minutes. So I'm going to try and get to as many of these as we can. So first of all, will this be recorded? Yes, it's recorded on live on Facebook. If you need it directly in your email, please email me, kim@kimhansen.net. What role does the Board of Cosmetology have in regard to advising the governor? Fred, do they advise the governor?
Unfortunately, they've had as much of a backseat as we have as an industry. Now, I do believe that's starting to change because 2 weekends or 2 Mondays in the row, the governor screwed up. He tried to throw us a bone and was slapped in the face by his own regulators and by the law. And so then he tried it again, opened up all services outside and was slapped in the face yet again and said, no, we can't do shampooing and running water and all of that. So I do think he's starting to learn his lesson, that he ought to invite the state board into his discussions more because they do have regulatory expertise over our industry. But yes, for people that keep going on state board's website or their Facebook page and ripping on them for not being advocates, believe me, they've been sidelined right along with the rest of us.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. It's very sad. Okay, so I own a salon in Newport Beach. Retail space is incredibly expensive, and throughout all the state. I'm sure you and Ted feel that pain, Jason. Has the governor or state board offered any solutions since the shutdown, since we've been shut down involuntarily, as far as like rent control, and what can we as cosmetologists do to help push back against this attempt of bankrupting our industry? Either one of you want to answer?
I'll let you go, Fred.
Okay. So our focus has been primarily with our limited bandwidth. And by the way, my literal limited bandwidth today, to focus on reopening. You know, we've got to stop the bleeding. We're triaging before we start getting into therapeutics. Nevertheless, I've had several meetings with legislators, just had a recent one Friday. The legislative branch now is back in session today. They have assured me that they are going to address rent abatement and this whole concern, commercial, and by the way, and private, that is on their list. So we're gonna have to see what happens there. We will also be providing more on our Facebook page about various loans and finance opportunities that the state of California is offering. I spoke with Jobs Economy Today, their chief consultant. She's already forwarded me information. So we will start providing more helpful information and lifelines. But our focus has been like a laser beam, trying to get our salons reopened.
Yeah, I think that has to be that way. Part of what we need to impress upon the governor is to stop knee-jerk closing salons every time COVID cases rise. Otherwise, we will be continuing to open-close cycle, which will destroy more salon businesses and stylist careers. It's not salons who are spreading it, as we know. It's outdoor dining, personal contacts, and so on and so forth. So Carrie Bennett, if all of you who know Carrie Bennett, also right, she just made that comment. We need representation as a group to get rents lowered as we return, or we can't stay viable. So that, I think you just answered that, but I think everybody agrees here, Carrie.
Can I just add to that? That's exactly how I ended up on the radio interview, and how I met Fred, and how I got into this conversation right now, because I've been really inspired. You know, Ted and I started a new organization called the Worth Up Foundation that we'll be launching soon. That's all about building up beauty entrepreneurs to help them manifest their dreams of being business owners. And through that conversation, we started talking about who are the people that we need to know? Who are the people that we need to have conversations with? Who are the people that we need to educate so that we can change this conversation from a blanket shutdown to the people making the laws and rules really understanding what goes into our businesses? There has to be some kind of exemption or certification, or really the thing that has to happen is our voice needs to come together so that we can send this message to the government so that they understand that we have this license. You know, like, what's the point of having a license if the government isn't going to honor that license? You know, you can eat food from someone who cooks it in the back of some kitchen somewhere that doesn't have to have a license, but I have to have a license to cut and color hair, something she can go to Walmart and buy some hair color, do it herself, have her girlfriend do it, but doesn't need a license. But I need a license. And that's because I'm a business owner. I'm a professional. And that license needs to be honored. So we need to make sure that Governor Newsom, that everyone else and every other government, state government, federal government, really honors the work that goes in, the education that goes in, the time that goes in to being licensed, staying licensed, and the responsibility that goes with that.
And then just injury or insult to injury. That same Walmart associate that's helping you pick out your hair coloring product, breathing over your shoulder, they're considered an essential business and we're not. It's disgusting. We've got the training, we have the license, we have the state oversight. The governor should partner with us, not punish us.
Yeah, so essentially what I hear both of you saying is we need to take control of the narrative here. You know, and that's partly what Fred, I think, talked about with the media, and part of, you know, what we did with the media. We're trying to control the narrative. We're trying to take the narrative away from, you know, other people or the governor or whatever, and we're trying to control it, saying, you know, this is what we do. And I think we've been trying to say that, but apparently, you know, I don't know, maybe they listened once, but then governor changed his mind again. So Adam Federico, who I'm sure you know, Fred, who's Adam?
I'm sorry, who's Adam? Adam is the son of Gary Federico, a third generation beauty professional, and he and his brothers, he runs a salon, AJF, but his brothers run Federico Beauty Institute in Sacramento.
Right. So they're part of PBSC, correct?
They are indeed proud members.
So he says he wants to make sure that everybody knows that state board is they're like our cops, right? They're like our police. They're our regulatory agency. They are not here to advocate for us. And he says, I see so many stylists and salon owners slamming the board as they are not standing up for our industry, but that's not really their role here. Their role here is to regulate us. Other advocacy groups such as PBFC are here to advocate for you.
And while you're looking for questions, let me just add briefly. I don't think they're really handing out a whole lot of citations in the last 4.5 months. They have really shifted their focus to education. The people that are coming down hard on our businesses are the county and city government officials. They're the ones out saying, I'm going to fine you $1,000 and put you in jail for 60 days. It's not coming from the state board. So state board's doing their level best to responsibly educate and uplift the professionalism of this industry. They don't have an interest in trying to penalize us.
All right. Okay. So one of the things is, okay, Micah says she's signed up for the PBFC. Now she wants to know how we can get this boat moving. Like, are we like, people feel like we're just sitting here in the water, not doing anything here. So what can we do? What can they do to feel like they have some control, Fred?
Pick up an oar and start pumping. The boat is moving. We need more people pumping, not distracting, not putting their feet in and dragging. So again, I mentioned something very concrete. Let me briefly reiterate. We need to change the narrative, as you said. We need the media's attention. This outside services thing is ready-made for TV cameras. Let's take advantage of this to shame the governor's total lack of respect and total lack of understanding of our licensed professionals.
And guys,
and
remember,
I will partner with all of you to do that. Go out to your outlets, find out who your reporters are, talk to the producers, give them my contact information, and let's tag team them. Let's do it all over the state of California. Let's light up Governor Newsom's inbox with bad press.
And that can be really intimidating to people that don't have any experience, but trust me, you don't have to be Ted Gibson on Good Morning America. Every single blog, every single influencer, every single local newspaper, local magazine, local television network is looking for content. It's our responsibility to create that content and get it on their desktop, get it in their emails, get it on their social media pages. It just takes that little bit of effort to really make your voice be heard. Don't think that it has to be a national news segment for it to be important, because enough regional things start happening, then the state things are going to pay attention.
Yeah, and if you're camera shy, because some people are a little camera shy, although it's hard for me to believe that a hairdresser is camera shy by looking at Instagram. So I had somebody email this. She says she's spoken with the health department, distributors, called senators, called county officials, written state board, Newsom, senator's office, written petitions, started a petition at SAC. I'm not really sure where that is, but anyway, that's something that I don't want to miss here either. You need to blow up your representative's phone. Like if you're not working, then you've got nothing better to do than blow up your representative's phone, because your assemblyman or assemblywoman or your senator or whoever is there to represent you. And so call them every day. Like, who cares? They're working for you, and clearly we're not working. So I also wanted to say that. But I had Fred, I'm going to wrap this up so that we can let Jason go on about his vacation, because we pulled him away from his family. I want to wrap this up because I thought that this came in and it said, I understand you're trying to sue the State Board of California with the inability to work, and there is nothing listed under the Constitution under pandemic. Waiting 2 to 5 years for a win, in my opinion, doesn't help us right now. Why not put funds raised into regrouping or reclassifying for a more permanent solution? We will probably be facing another shutdown in November if we even get there before then. Using our mandated sanitation guidelines, our licensing as an argument, we need to long-term solution to allow us to work and stay open. I do not think a class action lawsuit at this time would be beneficial, blah, blah, blah. So do you have any comments to that?
Yeah, litigation could be prolonged for months, sometimes years. In a prior life, I was a plaintiff's counsel, and I had cases that dragged on for 2.5 years. That's not an answer for our industry. We need immediate action. One of the reasons why we're calling upon everyone to join our organization is because we see this as a long-term fight. If we can get 10,000 dues-paying members with skin in the game behind our marching orders, we can wrestle back the destiny and fate of this industry from Sacramento. The type of influence 10,000 articulate, passionate hairdressers and salon owners can impose on this state, by the way, with the help of their clientele, the ripple effect, trust me, if we can organize just 10,000 out of 600,000, the sky is the limit. The Sacramento politicians will never want to cross us again. So we see this as both a immediate goal, but a long-term sustainable opportunity to finally control the destiny of this industry. And by the way, do it for the behind the chair professionals, not the soap providers in bottles, not the distributors, not the product manufacturers. We are representing the heart and soul of this industry, which is all of you. That's who the PBFC is. And we've never been organized before. It's time to rally.
That's Jason. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that was a great last comment, Fred. I think it's really important that we recognize our own voice, that we don't rely on the manufacturers. I'm still incredibly disappointed by their response in general to their support of salons, the salons that keep them open. So I think that that's a wake-up call for all of us. Like, we have been supporting the manufacturers like a religion, and they have shown us that they don't support us in the same way. And maybe they can't. I don't know. I'm not gonna, I don't want to judge them too harshly, but Fred's point is absolutely correct. It's time for us to rally ourselves and to make our voices heard and to get this happen.
Yeah, it's time for us to stand up, band together. I did a Facebook Live last week, and I did that because I was inspired after I got off a call with Fred and Ted and a couple other people. We need to band together and unite. And yes, we don't all agree on the lawsuit or outdoor operations or whatever, but you know what? We're never all going to agree on everything. And it's just like, this is not a red or blue thing. This is our livelihoods, and we all just want to get that back. We just all want to open the doors to our salons, to our suites, to wherever you're at, and pick up a color brush and pick up a comb and a shear. And we want to go back to work to be able to provide for our families. And I think that's the ultimate goal. So the best way I know how to do that, you guys, is the PBFC. I don't always agree with them. However, I do believe in knowing them that they're the best option right now. Wouldn't you agree, Jason?
Yeah, I'm super inspired, really inspired.
Yeah. All right. So, real quick before I let you go, Jason, I'm just curious because I don't want to I know I'm curious. What's the Worth Up Foundation?
Okay. Thank you for asking. It's a brand new organization. We are Ted Gibson, Allison King, and Sean King. They're a couple who have 2 salons in Brooklyn, New York. We got together on a phone call just because there was so much fear around salons reopening, and we wanted to create a positive message for our industry. And out of that conversation came the Worth Up Foundation. So what that will be is 3 different levels or tiers of support for would-be entrepreneurs. It will be tier 1, library of webinars to help answer any questions that you might have about opening your own business. The tier 2, you'll be paired up with mentors who have already opened and run successful salons, started their own product manufacturing, gone from behind the chair to platform or editorial, all different ways of opening their own businesses, and have proven themselves to be very successful. So those people are going to make their time and their talent available to our mentees to get them ready to then apply for a grant. And our goal will be to be awarding would-be entrepreneurs with cash awards of $10,000 to $100,000 to help them open up the business that they've been dreaming about forever. So we really want to fill this void to be able to help beauty professionals become entrepreneurs.
Wow. I love that. Matter of fact, you guys can give me a call because I would just love to be a part of that. Seriously.
Thank you.
That's kind of my gig. Like, I just want to level people up, and we are not just hairdressers. We are legit people in our industry that we have families, we work hard. I'd like to know a lot of people who can stand behind a chair and bend over a shampoo bowl as long as we can, right? With no lunch all day.
Well, maybe we can do this again and have all the people from Worth Up come over and have a conversation with you. That would be great.
Yeah, I would love that. That totally sounds like right up my alley. So, all right. So thank you so much. I am really sorry we didn't get to all of your comments and questions. if you want, if we didn't get to your question and you would like an answer to your question, you can either email me at kim@kimhansen.net and I can forward it to Fred or Jason, or you can go on Facebook. This will be recorded live on Facebook. So you can go on Facebook and ask your question there. And I really apologize for not getting to everybody. And gosh, we had such a great turnout today, you guys. I'm so happy about this. Any last words, guys?
I'm just excited to be so inspired. I'm feeling really fortunate to have met you all, and I'm really looking forward to making some waves and having our voices heard as a community of entrepreneurs and creatives.
Let's
and
unite.
I'll just say my heart bleeds for all of you. I've been losing sleep for the last week and a half. We understand the weight of the situation, and we're coming. We're coming for you.
Yeah, I do know that about you. So, and I as well, a lot of sleepless nights, I'll tell you that, in the last couple of weeks. All right, so I'm going to let Jason get back to his family vacation. Thank you, Jason, for taking time out of your vacation in the Midwest to be with us today. Thanks, Fred, for taking time to be with us and going through and sort of exposing who the Wizard of Oz is. And I want to thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. As always, my goal is to inspire you to be the very, very, very best you can be, and so that we can come together as a common unity or community. You know, our common unity is we are hairdressers, and that makes us a community. So I want to just say good night or good afternoon, everyone, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.